Once upon a time, in the fertile but neglected province of Oakhaven, lived a young man named Thomas. Thomas was born into a family of tenant farmers. He owned no land, possessed no noble blood, and had no inheritance waiting for him except for a rusted iron spade and a fierce, unyielding work ethic. While others in his village complained about the rocky soil or the heavy taxes, Thomas simply woke up an hour before the sun to clear the stones from his family's small plot. He had a simple philosophy: the soil returns exactly what you put into it. When Tomas turned 20, a devastating drought struck the kingdom. The rivers shrank to muddy trickles, and the great lords of the realm locked themselves in their keeps, hoarding grain while the peasants despaired. Tomas refused to watch his village starve. Instead of giving up, he began an impossible project. Working by moonlight after his daily chores, Tomas began digging a trench from a distant mountain spring all the way to the village valley. Impressed by his stamina, a few skeptical neighbors joined him. Tomas led by example, working until his hands bled and blisters turned to thick calluses. The irrigation ditch was completed. While the surrounding lands withered into dust, Thomas's village flourished, transforming into a green oasis that kept hundreds of families alive. His reputation for tireless leadership began to spread far beyond Oakhaven. Word of the miracle of Oakhaven eventually reached the capital, where the old king sat on a crumbling throne. The kingdom was in decay, not from war, but from decades of administrative rot and lazy nobles who preferred banquets to governance. Seeking the man responsible for saving the province, the king summoned Tomas to court. "I am told you saved an entire region with nothing but a shovel and your bare hands," the king said, looking at Thomas's stained clothes and calloused fingers. "The crown needs an administrator of the treasury. The nobles have failed me. Will you take the post?" Tomas accepted, but he did not move into a lavish estate. He slept on a cot in the records office. While the ministers arrived at noon and left by 3, Tomas worked 18-hour days. He taught himself to read ledgers, audited the corrupt tax collectors, and personally visited the royal granaries to ensure food was being distributed fairly. He didn't use fear to govern. He used an unmatched, disciplined presence that shamed the lazy into working harder. Within 5 years, the kingdom's debt was entirely wiped out. The old king, having no heirs and feeling his life fading, called a grand council of all the lords, knights, and citizens. He stood before his throne and made a shocking announcement. "A kingdom is not a trophy to be inherited by the idle," the king declared. "It is a field that must be tended. I have decided that the throne will go to the man who has labored the hardest for the prosperity of this realm." The nobles protested, pointing to their ancient lineages and gilded armor. But the citizens, the merchants, and even the royal guard cheered. They had all watched Tomas work. They had seen him in the trenches during the drought, and they had seen him rewriting the tax codes to protect the poor. When the old king passed, the crown was placed not upon a head of royal blood, but upon Tomas, the peasant from Oakhaven. King Thomas's coronation was unlike any the realm had ever seen. He chose not to wear a crown of heavy gold and jewels, but rather a simple band of polished iron. He didn't build grand monuments to his own name. Instead, he used his power to build schools, repair roads, and ensure that every peasant had the right to own the land they worked. King Tomas never forgot the weight of a spade or the ache of a long day's labor. And under his diligent rule, the kingdom entered a golden age of peace and plenty. proving forever that true nobility is not born, but earned.